Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Tanked Observers podcast. I'm your host, Jackson McCarty, as always joined by my co-host, Chris Farr. And Chris, what are we doing today?
I'd be happy to tell you. We're talking about corners. Superlatives, in fact.
Not just corners.
And safeties. Defensive backs as a whole. That whole area behind the linebackers, we're talking about those folks.
You may call them the secondary in most conversations, but they're the primary for today's episode. You see what I did there.
Oh, wow. Look at you. You're so clever, Jackson.
I'm just so witty, man. I can't help it.
Silver-tongued devil, you.
I just do it off the brain. None of that was pre-written at all. But regardless, let's go ahead and look at the first guy we have. No, they're not going to waste much time on that one. Caleb Farley, who we have dubbed the class Heartthrob.
Yes, I mean, why wouldn't he be 6'1",
Yes.
super athlete? Dude jumps through the gym and has hands like a receiver because he was one.
He was a QB, then a wide receiver, and now he's stealing my heart at the cornerback position.
Yeah, he should probably pick a position. It looks like he is because right now he's in the top 10 for most mock drafts.
Yeah, he's comfortably my cornerback one. Not to diminish the guy we're going to talk about second. But
Pretty predictable who it is, but
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, if you've been following along either with this podcast or with the NFL draft cycle as a whole, you probably guess who it is. But yeah, no, Caleb Farley, if you're an avid listener of the show, you know there's a few things that I really value. A guy who's changed positions and succeeding, check. Athletic insanity, check. Young, check. I don't like those 22, 23-year-old prospects. Kind of bothered me. Farley has all of those. He's only been playing corner for 2 years and is legitimately better on tape than 99% of guys coming out of college.
He's a fairly polished product.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to find flaws in what he does.
He's got to take a step up in man cov, but in zone and
His
general
situational
aggressiveness,
awareness.
yes.
His situational awareness, his athleticism, and his ability. He has some of the best hands at the corner position.
Yeah.
Because of what he did, a lot like Richard Sherman, he had really good hands. Didn't help him in the draft. Guy went in the 5th round, but we've seen what he's done in the NFL. And with Caleb Farley, he's fast. He's got the size. His zone coverage is incredible, and he's big enough that his press can make up for some of the
Yes.
flaws that you can see. That being said, his hands could use some work, but you're just nitpicking at that point.
Yeah, it's questionable. I think he's really, really good, and I think if you can find a position, I'd love to see him land in San Francisco.
I'd rather see him land in San Francisco than Dallas, so I can
Yes.
keep rooting for him.
I think the cornerback two that we have here is going there no matter what because of the Bama connection.
Well, the Bama connection. Well, there you have it.
Yeah.
The thing is with Dallas, like I just mentioned, being from New York, it's hard to keep my personal feelings out of how much I dislike that team. And I really think that it doesn't even have to do with New York at some points because most people dislike the Dallas Cowboys unless you are a fan of them.
Yes.
Outside of that,
My dad's a fan of them, and I cannot stand Dallas.
you're a Washington fan.
Yeah, I know. It was my lone act of rebellion as a child to stay in the NFC East. Yeah, to stay in the NFC East and just chirp about my 5-11 team while his is 6-10. It's just like it's just to kind of
that powerhouse division.
just to ruffle the feathers. But yeah, no, Caleb Farley. You've heard plenty about him. This next guy, you're probably going to be pretty well versed in as well, but you can't not mention him when you're talking about the secondary. One Mr. Patrick Surtain and Topher. Since you have such a connection to this superlative, from harking all the way back to last year, I want you to announce it.
Pat Surtain is best to bring home to mom and dad. And
Yes.
there's so many reasons why. He's legendary. He's got the namesake. He's from Alabama.
He is.
It's that alone
He's
is
just
it is a thing. He's also a crazy athlete. He's a top tier prospect. There's so much to like about him. He mans up. He drops back in zone. Frankly, his coverage is probably a little bit more polished than Farley.
Mhm.
It's just Farley is just so big and athletic. It does kind of give him an edge for certain people. Me personally, I like Surtain as corner one.
Okay.
But that's also just me. Everyone has their own opinions on things and such.
Yeah, no, I can't blame anybody for saying Patrick Surtain is cornerback one because everything looks like I don't want to say the perfect prospect, but everything has come up green for him. You know, your dad used to play in the NFL, great cornerback. Yep, perfect. Goes to Alabama, pretty great school, pretty good at making decent to legitimate greats at defense, especially in the NFL.
Yeah, the Alabama, that's an okay program.
I mean, if you can ignore D. Milner, they have a really good track record. But he's fundamentally dominant. He's not, maybe he doesn't jump off the page at the combine, which I do think will be Farley's sealing fate, or pro days since they're doing it different. I think that will solidify him as cornerback 1 because he is so much more athletic than Surtain. But Surtain, you can tell he really knows what he's doing. He comes across as fundamentally sound, comes across like you can trust this guy, which mom and dad will love.
Yeah, trust is a big thing for mom and dad, but let's slide down to the third guy on our list, one J.C. Horn.
Yes, one Mr. J.C. Horn, who we have deemed the luckiest. And as weird as it sounds, it is better to not be a top 10 pick.
For this draft more than ever, I can recognize at least last year you had some teams that looked like they had so much promise. They were coming up, and they did. A lot of those teams did end up coming up. But now we're looking at teams that are in full rebuild mode, like year 1 or 2 of a rebuild.
Oh, tons of them.
You're just looking at these teams and you're like, oh boy, I'm gonna have to be their corner piece. But here's the thing with J.C. Horn is with how crazy this corner and just secondary draft is, you're looking at falling, even though you'd normally be like a top 15 pick. You're looking at falling to some of these better teams that are already competing.
He could be comfortably top 15, but when you look at it, I'm just going to run you down the top 10 selections and like what issues are surrounding it. Jacksonville, there is no telling what's going to come out of the AFC South, period. There's no telling what Urban Meyer will be as a head coach of the NFL.
Certainly not.
And Trevor Lawrence exists.
Trevor Lawrence exists. That's the thing.
That one's off. The Jets will always be the Jets in some fashion.
The Jets, there's hardly ever hope, but the past couple of years have really just driven home the despair for that organization.
Miami's stuck with the Bills, so that's going to be a dogfight, but one of the better landing spots up top.
That would be one of the...
Atlanta's hard to call. Cincinnati's hard to call with Zach Taylor. The NFC East does not lend particularly well to Philly, even though it is an easy division.
No matter how good Atlanta is, it's still Atlanta, and they just love losing games they should win, and they love scoring 30 points and allowing 40.
I'm also very not confident about Arthur Smith, their new head coach. Detroit, Motor City Dan Campbell's going to need some time. Carolina, they are probably the best team in the top 10 for me. Miami, but Carolina, it would be too, most likely. Denver, who, hate to tell you, but you got to play Patrick Mahomes twice a year. You're not winning that division anytime soon. And then the Dallas Cowboys, who, again, like we talked about Philly, you're the NFC East, and it's hard to buy into anybody in that right now, coming from an NFC East fan. So when we talk about, it's better to fall and better, to be 12, 13, 14, San Francisco, New England at 15, you're looking at such a better opportunity to come in and win. And so J.C. Horn, he has legitimate CB1 potential, but he's behind 2 insane corners. And he might become the luckiest man of them all.
Yes, and falling like that, you're likely finding yourself a key player on a contending team with this level of talent.
Yeah. He no matter where he falls, it will likely be in the first. I wouldn't be shocked if it's Arizona.
Zona would be a nice landing spot for him.
Zona would be a nice
spot. D-Hop and Kyler.
They really just need the other side of the ball at this point and to figure out what they're going to do with Isaiah Simmons and, probably a new head coach.
I am lost on Isaiah Simmons. I do not know what is going to go on with him.
You and Kingsbury both, which I've been saying it since I hired him. That was the wrong signing. But this is not our opinion on head coaches. Maybe we'll do that soon. That could be a fun episode.
Head coaches?
Yes.
What are we
Buy or sell these head coaches.
I'm in.
Start bench cut these head coaches.
Oh man.
College and NFL.
College and
could be something on the way. Could definitely be something on the way.
An interesting hypothesis.
I'm excited to flesh that one out.
I don't think I used that word right.
Hypothesis?
Yeah.
That would be like a theory. So you definitely used no.
Oh, okay, no.
Interesting idea.
Interesting idea.
regardless, those are the top 3 corners. We'd be stuck on that all day if we didn't push that along. Those are the top 3 corners. Let's look at the top 2 safeties before we go to our individual picks. The man we have deemed safety 1, Javon Holland. Topher, what did we give him?
He's just most versatile,
Yes.
which he is, literally, most versatile.
Yeah.
Probably could have given it to Isaiah Simmons last year.
Simmons. Yeah.
Simmons. Isaiah Simmons last year. But I'm thinking of Anthony Simons.
You are. Wrong sport.
Yes.
Way smaller.
Way wrong side of the sport in general.
Way less cool. No offense, Anthony Simons.
But he does everything you could possibly need him to in the secondary. He can't run the linebacker like Simmons does, but he can run both safeties.
Mm-hmm.
He can slide into the slot if you really need him to. But you probably shouldn't ask. He can run the outside. He's long enough to do so.
It's a better request than since asking John Ross to play corner. I cannot believe that's a storyline that happened. That shocks me to death. I don't even know how I went off to that. But no,
Don't worry about it.
You're 100% right. Javon Holland, there's not a whole lot that you can't ask him to do in the secondary.
He's a do-it-all guy.
Yes.
It's the best way to describe him. He's kind of like Jabril Peppers, but I'd say a little bit watered down.
Yeah, I'd say more well-rounded-ish. Like, not so much focused because, like, I think Jabril's really good in the zone. I don't think Javon really stands out as much in zone. I think it's just his ability to come in and stand in and cover all of his bases really well.
Yes, he's just so gifted. He has such a good football mind because that's why he can run all the different spots on the field. He knows the field so well. He doesn't get lost when he's in coverage because he knows his assignment and he knows how he can help other assignments without failing to cover his own.
Yeah, and it's kind of an inverse example, but he is like the utility man in baseball. You know, somebody that you can plug in at third whenever your starter's out, or there's an opening at second tonight against a righty. Let's throw him in second. There's a center fielder out. Put him back there. It's just like somebody who you don't really have to worry coming in if there's 1 or 2 injuries, especially if he's the backup for his first couple of years, because it's like, oh, we have Holland. He can go do that.
Yeah, he's a guy that can help you cover all your bases.
Yeah, I think he'll probably go early second if I was a betting man.
It's a solid choice.
About the same range for safety 2 here, who is definitely not as versatile, but still stands out amongst the top of his class. Talking about Trayvon Moehrig from TCU, who we've deemed most reliable.
And I like the idea of most reliable because he's not gonna blow your mind. It's a lot like a game manager at quarterback. He's not gonna lose you the game, but he's also not gonna make that game-changing play that just like breaks the whole world.
Yeah,
he's not gonna break the internet with an interception in the end zone that just locked the game. I mean, he could. That anyone could.
He's a sure hand.
You just know that he's not gonna make the mistake.
I'm failing to even come up with like a respectable comparison in the sense of just like a free safety who stays in the league for a decade and maybe was never top 7, but was never lower than top 15.
Glover Quinn.
Okay, yeah, Glover Quinn.
There we go.
Perfect. Somebody who can be like a Glover Quinn and come in, play respectable ball week in, week out, top of the free safety, either in 1 or 3 cov. There's going to have to be, he's either going to have to be on an island or he's going to have both sides. He's not much of a cover 2 guy, which I kind of find worrisome, but his free safety and ball hawking abilities are promising. He's not good enough as a tackler to say maybe we can put him at strong safety, but he's not afraid of contact, which is something that you watched me get really scared of for Grant Delpit last year.
I still want to see Grant Delpit play. He was still one of my favorite players going out of college that year, and I want to see him.
He's been out all year, right?
He missed the entire season. And you know what? Reggie Nelson's a better comp.
Okay, Reggie Nelson. That one works for me as well. But yeah, no, Trayvon Moehrig, most reliable. And now we look towards our picks, which, Topher, I know how much you like your guy. We actually picked people from the same school, which I just now noticed. I'm going to let you kick this one off, though.
Okay, well, if you couldn't already guess, since we're doing corners, and if you're a friend of the show that loves to watch, then you know how I feel about Asante Samuel Jr. Yes. And I'm giving him best name value, which isn't an actual
Superlative.
But I did it myself because he deserves it.
There's not a real "Your Dad is Cool" award in high school.
I went coolest dad if you want. I don't know.
Yeah.
All I know is that Asante Samuel, when he was in the league, was a flat baller. Led the league in picks a few times, which just gives me so much hope for his son because you can imagine he's getting mentored by this utter ball hawk. And if he's getting that type of mentoring from Pops, then I see no reason why the lineage should end there when Asante Samuel Jr. hits the league. He is a champ.
Yeah, no, Asante Samuel Jr. specifically is somebody that we've been watching. Yeah, we've been watching him for a we've been watching him for a season or two. And it was weird when we first saw it because it's like, oh, it's one of these gimmicky players. Like, to no offense, but like that is kind of what comes up. First example I think of is John Stockton's son.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, oh, this isn't the same.
No, or, not even a little bit.
Or unfortunately what I think Sharif O'Neal might end up being. It's
what
like
about Gary Payton II.
Gary Payton II. Tim Hardaway Jr.
Yeah.
Which we're currently experiencing. He's not a bad player, but regardless, you look at it and it's just like, it's like, your dad was cool and I hope you turn out good, but I'm not going to keep too much tabs on you. Then the year progresses and he starts having a really, really good season. And you're like, oh, okay, he's more than just junior. And so I'm really excited to watch him.
Yes, I really do like Asante Samuel Jr. I think I'm not sure if he's necessarily shut down, but I think he's got those ball hawking tendencies that give you a lot of hope for a player to be one of those guys who are pick artists. Yeah. Maybe not to the same level as Marcus Peters, maybe, because he's nuts.
Yes.
But I still think he could be a really solid player, corner 2, maybe corner 1, if he turns out like that. Not going to make any promises, but I'm certainly rooting for him.
I could see that. I could see him probably at a high-end cornerback, too, at his peak. But no, he very well could surprise us and be better than his dad.
That would be incredible.
Only time will tell. But as I mentioned earlier, I said that we chose the same school, which if you're familiar with Asante Samuel means it's a Florida State Seminole. And if you've done a little bit of narrowing down, you might have figured out that I have picked Hamza Nasruddin, who I have called most enticing. Mm. We thought he was going to come out for last year's draft. We talked about that a time or two on the podcast. It wasn't to be, and he ended up returning. I was very much on the Hamza train when that happened, and I failed to get off because he is so good. He's aggressive.
He's just a really strong talent.
Yes.
And with his size, it's hard to give up on a player like that because when you're that big and you have the talent and you see him fall in the way that he is.
Yeah. The injury can be cause for panic, which I will acknowledge. It's kind of like Marvin Wilson, also Florida State Seminole.
Hey, let's see. We have Marvin Wilson, Dylan Moses. There's a trend going on where injuries make you fall in the draft.
Yeah, and that might be a thing that people keep an eye on and get really worried about. Jalen Smith could probably tell you a thing or two about that.
Ooh, Miles Jack.
Yeah, exactly, proving the point. Hamza Nasruddin, I think, has the potential to fill an Isaiah Simmons role if done correctly. Arizona did not know how to do it. And if Hamza can go to somewhere competent, he could end up being similar to what Jeremy Chin was this year.
You know where I like him? Jacksonville,
yeah. Jacksonville would work. Maybe it's just me being a homer, but Washington.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
But you know what I mean? Like, because we kind of need a linebacker. We kind of need a safety. It's like, just draft the dude who can do both.
Why not? Let's just package it together.
It's just going to end with us signing J-Ron Curse for agency, but whatever.
You're not wrong.
That's
You're spot on.
That's more us than drafting guys that I like.
Yes. Yes.
Regardless.
I'd love to see it.
That will conclude our secondary superlatives and conclude superlatives for the year, Topher.
Oh my.
A season has come and gone, and now we will be focusing on likely the coaching thing, and then zoning in a little bit more on some actual draft stuff. Of course, this is draft stuff, but we'll try to get down to the nitty-gritty of it. As always, I'm Jackson McCarty.
And marshmallow fluff isn't the same as regular marshmallows.
See you guys next week.
But is he the best player in this draft on his own?